You have the right to remain stupid. Everything you do not know can and will be used against you, most likely for profit.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
We would like to apologize for the way in which politicians are represented in this program. It was never our intention to imply that politicians are weak-kneed political time servers who are concerned more with their personal vendettas and private power struggles than the problems of government. Nor to suggest at any point that they sacrifice their credibility by denying free debate on vital matters, in the mistaken impression that party unity comes before the well-being of the people they supposedly represent. Nor to imply at any stage that they are squabbling little toadies without an ounce of concern for the vital social problems of today. Nor indeed do we intend that viewers should consider them as crabby, ulcerous little self-seeking vermin with furry legs and an excessive addiction to alcohol and certain explicit sexual practices which some people might find offensive. We are sorry if this impression has come across.
You know who likes special entertainment like that? My mom!
If you'd like to participate in the show, you can leave us voicemail at 815-200-4912. You can tweet us at TheSideProject2. You can even email us at TheSideProject2@gmail.com, or you can use the hashtag TSPLive. And welcome once again, friends, neighbors, Romans, countrymen, to another action-packed, side-splitting, laugh-a-minute, blah, 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 blah episode of Side Project Live. Once again, from Morris, Illinois, this is Jim Goebel.
Who's next?
Eric, you're next.
All right. Hey, once again, from Lockport, Illinois, Eric Ferguson.
And hopefully our other co-host, Lex Zorn, from Indianapolis, will be joining us here in a few moments. But for today, we do have a special guest. He is co-host of the Bitchspot Report, of which I was a guest about a month or so ago. He's also co-host of another show called Irreverent Skeptics, and he's got his own show, A Skeptic's Guide to Conspiracy. Welcome, Mike Bohler.
Hello from Shorewood, Illinois.
Know it well. As for myself, having grown up in the Joliet area, and yeah, made many a trip to Baba's restaurant there at the corner of 59 and 52.
Yeah, it's a shame it's gone now.
The only thing I really remember about the place is that all the drinks tasted like sulfur.
Pretty much. We used to like to hang out at the restaurant. Oh, there's been many a night to work the alcohol out of the system.
Yeah, I mostly just went there with the family. We would go to dinner or something there, and knowing my dad, the only reason we probably went there is because it was cheap. But
yeah.
But those were the good old days. But so anyway, so what's up? What you got going on over there, Eric?
Well, it's Jimmy Buffett today, so getting ready.
Margaritaville.
You got it.
Or A Cheeseburger in Paradise. The only two songs of his that I know.
Yeah, well, 45 years worth of albums. There's a few more.
Yeah, I can't say as I'm a huge fan, but so I cannot believe that some people are into Jimmy Buffett as much as some people are into the Beatles or even the Beach Boys or the Stones or what have you.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a Buffett fan, but I'm not that crazy.
I got a friend who's not only a diehard Beatles fan, he's also a diehard Beach Boys fan. You might know him, Sean Courtney.
Sean Courtney does not ring a bell.
Okay, because he worked at the for a short time.
Does not ring a bell. Wouldn't have been when I was there.
All right, but yeah, he's like huge into this stuff, and he's like always going on about special events or whatever, and you know, in Beatles history and you know the Beach Boys and he's got yeah, he's just like a huge fanatic. And the only real band that I am a huge fan of, but you know, that you could almost sort of possibly consider fanatic would be King's X, and even them I'm not like a huge fanatic.
I don't really do that. I've got, you know, some favorites and own all the records and that sort of stuff, but yeah, I don't, you know, if I hear something that's not them, that's okay. You know, not that crazy, not that fanatical.
Yeah, and you know, I'm also a huge fan of Steely Dan and Genesis. Probably slightly more bigger fan of Steely Dan. They got some really good stuff. What's his name? Donald Fagen. That guy is a talent. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, I like them quite well. I have most of the records.
Donald Fagen released a solo album a couple of years ago called Sunken Condos. Maybe it was last year. And wow, that thing is amazing, man. That guy, like I said, he's got some talent, and always wanted to see Steely Dan in concert, you know. And they didn't start touring until like '92.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the problem is that every time they come to Chicago, tickets are like 150 some bucks, and it's like you can't afford to go to concerts anymore. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm an Alan Parsons fan, and they don't tour all the time, but when they do, they don't come to the United States very often, and so they were here. It was $100 minimum, and I'm like, oh man, I just can't.
What's his name from Alan Parsons Project died a couple years ago. Not Alan Parsons, but the other guy. I can't remember.
Eric Wolfson.
I don't remember the guy's name. That might be it. But he died a couple of years ago. And if you go to the Alan Parsons Project website, at least I checked before his second in command died, you can rent them out for like weddings and parties and stuff.
I don't know. that may be in jest. I don't know. Yeah, Eric Wolfson checked out a couple years back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wolfson. I thought you said Wilson. Yeah. No, Wolfson. That's
Wolfson. Eric Wolfson. Yeah, he checked out a few years ago. Maybe more than a few years ago.
I understand. The way I understand it, those guys had like a falling out or something, and they never reconciled, from what I understand.
Yeah, something like that. But after putting together, let's see, 10 records, you know, it's fine. They were ready to move on.
Yeah, you know, it happens. You know, we went into depth about Genesis last week, and you know, same boat basically. Although I don't think the breakup was not the breakup, but Peter Gabriel departing the band was more for personal reasons than it was for any sort of animosity toward the group.
Could be.
But
anyhow.
Anyway, enough with the chit chat. And you could jump in any time you want, Mike. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's no problem.
So what band are you a fanatic of?
I'm kind of the same thing. It's kind of I listen to about everything, but I still have all my Leonard Skinner. I've got a lot of REO Speedwagon and Styx. I'm trying to think. I think that's about, or Springsteen. I got a lot of Springsteen stuff. So, you know, those are probably my go-tos.
I'm not a huge fan of Springsteen. I mean, he's got a few songs that I really, really like, and but
yeah.
I like about him the wrong way.
Yeah, I like his older stuff, not the newer stuff that's been coming out. I think maybe the last album was like Born in the USA was probably his. For me, it was the best album. But I liked Born to Run, Ashbury Park. You know, those albums.
You know, I need to hear the original version that he did of "Blinded by the Light." A lot of people don't know that was not a Manfred Mann's Earth Band song. That was written by Springsteen.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to figure out what the lyrics on that damn thing mean for the longest time, and I think it's about the music industry.
I don't know.
I don't think anybody knows, but that's the best theory I've come up with.
I try not to think too much about that. I mean, you get trapped in a endless loop. When I did a show on the Beatles and the conspiracy, the Paul is dead conspiracies, and some of the stuff in there, it was just so hilarious. I mean, the Sgt. Pepper's album is you're supposed to be able to draw lines between certain people, and it either points to items on the bottom. There's I guess there's like something that looks like a coffin. So like if you draw a line between, I forget which images, but you drew this triangle and you divided the triangle, it pointed right to this coffin, right through Paul McCartney. It's just there's just so much funny stuff, and I think one of my conclusions for that show was that we do have this connection we make these connections with famous people, the people we see on TV, we listen to on the radio. I mean, I'm not a Michael Jackson fan. I don't understand how Michael Jackson is just so popular, but it was the music of the time and the stuff you grew up with, so you do make these you relate good memories to the music that was on the radio. So I can kind of understand a lot of the why we do make these connections, and then why it's so important that I mean most of these stars, like Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, some of I did say Janis Joplin, a lot of these stars who died, mysteriously or ahead of their times. I mean, these are people that lived life. They lived a life that is probably bigger than themselves, and getting caught up in it, and basically into self-destruction. I mean, Kurt Cobain. I mean, what was that one? When I heard the lyrics. What was I forget what song it was, but it was in there. I want to eat your cancer when it turns black.
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going off the deep end. This guy's. We're not going to see him. Something's going to happen to this guy because he's in a weird world.
Mm-hmm. You were mentioning, and this is a good segue into conspiracies here. You were mentioning about the people are seeing patterns in the Sgt. Pepper's, cover and all of that. What is now? The way I understand it, that we have as humans a way of seeing patterns where none exist. What was the name of that? It was
pareidolia.
Pareidolia.
Yeah.
And honestly, this probably goes against everything, but I actually honestly believe that there actually are patterns out there. But actually, though, I don't think that that's so much untrue. I think that even people that believe in or that recognize pareidolia believe that there are patterns out there. It's just not everywhere. Like where the conspiracy theorists see a conspiracy behind everything. We know that there are conspiracies out there, but they're just not everywhere.
Right. Well, pareidolia. I mean, we're ingrained with it. I mean, I mean, as I'm understanding the science behind it, it was our ability to deal with when we weren't on top of the food chain. We were food for something else. It was very important to be able to recognize, that there's a lion getting ready to eat us. So being able to recognize patterns in where there's a lot of confusion gave us this, gave us an advantage. Mm-hmm. And when you work it correctly, yes, there are patterns. We seek out patterns, and it's in our nature. But a lot of times with the conspiracy theorists, they add to that pattern, or they'll try to turn that pattern into something nefarious. The all-seeing eye on the dollar bill is supposed to be a symbol of the Illuminati. Probably yes. There's some there various Freemason symbols and stuff like that, but does it mean that there's something wrong? No. I mean, I don't really see anything wrong with and actually doing the Illuminati shows. This was the Illuminati, the originals, were an offshoot of the Enlightenment, Age of Enlightenment, where we started switching over to science and reason and starting to reject religion and so on.
Historically, they were the good guys.
They were the good guys, and much of our Constitution has Illuminati, Enlightenment-based concepts, unalienable rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. These are Illuminati ideas. Why is this bad? I don't know. It could be just a counter Enlightenment, which we do see a lot with many of the religious types, where it's where science is so encroached into their realms that they're rebelling against it. Trying to bring creationism and intelligent design back into schools and stuff like that.
Kind of like our old friend Pat Robertson here.
Yeah.
You have the right to remain stupid. Everything you do.
And as I was waiting, the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me. And what he told me was somewhat embarrassing, but I was in a hurry and I wanted to help her. Oh, everything's fine. I said, how's your marriage life? And she said, I have a wonderful marriage. And I have a loving husband and everything's fine. And I asked some more questions and couldn't get to the root of this asthma. And I didn't sense that I was dealing with demons. And so I said again, under the prompting of God's Spirit, well, could you tell me specifically about your sex life? And she said, I don't have any sex life. And I said, what do you mean? You just told me you had a wonderful marriage, everything was great. And she said, I don't. And I said, why not? And she said, my husband is impotent. Now that would cause asthma.
There's real science right there.
Yeah. That's classic.
Yeah,
I wish it was that easy.
My thing with conspiracy theories is, my thing with conspiracy theories is people, they want them. They proliferate because people like them. They want them. They need them. They can't handle that someone else isn't as miserable as they are. They can't handle the fact that things are just plain broken for no reason. They just, they refuse to accept those things. Well, I don't feel well. Well, maybe you just don't feel well. No, it's the fluoride. It's the fluoride. It's the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is making me not feel well. I'm having a hard time sleeping because the neighbor has Wi-Fi. It has to be somebody else. It can't be you.
Well, it's just like religion. It's just another way of avoiding responsibility for your own actions.
Well, of course. And then the first thing they do, they flip around the radio and they hear an Alex Jones or someone say something that they like the sound of, and they're like, "Oh, that's it," and they pick it up, and it's all religion: the global warming, the fluoride in the water, whatever it is, the toilet paper shortage. You pick one, and it's if they like the sound of the story, they run with it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, we do have the Google Hangouts Q&A open, so if you got any questions or whatever for me, or the guests, or my co-hosts, or hell, the neighbor down the street, I could give them a call. Just open up the Q&A thing and type your question in and go away. It looks like we got a few viewers right now, and I know we got a few listeners, so hey, have at it. We're also in the Radio Fubar chat room, and radiofubar.com. Just going to chat. Totally forgot to read my pre-show stuff. So
well, go ahead. I'm going to go make coffee.
Okay, you can leave us a email at 415-200-4912. You can tweet us. Our Twitter is @TheSideProject2. So, and I've got TweetDeck open. So if you can reach us there. Email us at thesideproject2@gmail.com. And let's use the hashtag TSP Live. And also, if you want to hear any of our archives, tsplive.com is our main site. We're on, for those of us on a podcast, on the MP3, you can get us radiofubar.com every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Central. You can listen to us live. We're in the iTunes Store. We're on TuneIn Radio on your smartphone, tablet, or Roku box. Just search Radio Fubar, and you'll get us and all of the other great shows on Radio Fubar. We're on your Stitcher app on your smartphone if it doesn't crash on you. And I'd like to give thanks to a few local businesses here in Morris: Ron's Pork Shack, Big R, Morris Diner and Pancake House, Brewed Awakenings, and Morris PC Solutions for letting me plaster up their places with flyers promoting the show. And if you go to radiofubar.com and you go into the store, we do have TSP Live, Side Project Live T-shirts. Only $20. A little portion of that goes to us, so we can get some better equipment, or spend it on blow and hookers. And there you go. So back to the show now that I've got all of that stuff out of the way, which I should have read it earlier. So as we're looking at Eric's basement. Whoa, there's that buzz again. So, what were we saying? We were talking about how conspiracies are just another way for people to relieve themselves of the responsibility for leading is a way to shirk responsibility for their own actions. And oh, not a problem. See, I prepared my caffeine before we went on air. I got iced tea. I can't do coffee. I'm an iced tea guy. Fresh brewed iced tea is good stuff. And hey, here's our other co-host, Lex Zorn. Hi, Lex.
Yeah, I apologize. I pressed the wrong button. I actually was I was watching as a spectator and didn't realize that I wasn't on the air. So I was talking, and then I heard you say that you hoped I'd be joining. So then I went back and realized the mistake. So here I am.
Gotcha. Yeah. So everybody, Lex, this is Mike. He's another local guy from my area.
All right. Yeah, great to have you.
Hey, thank you.
We're talking conspiracies here.
One of our favorite topics, of course.
For those who may have missed, Mike is a co-host of the Bitchspot Report, which I was on a month ago. He's co-host of Irreverent Skeptics, which is usually on Saturdays, and he's got his own show, A Skeptic's Guide to Conspiracy. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, and I was going to try to get you on a little bit later in the year, but I might be speaking at a convention that weekend, is September 11th, and conspiracies surrounding that. First of all, okay, as I've explained before on this show and other shows countless times, conspiracy theorists love me. My last name is okay, so people, when I get into an argument with them, they say, "Oh, you're spreading propaganda just like Hitler's right-hand man, your namesake."
Yeah.
Joining the Freemasons. I did get a job offer from a local nuclear power plant. Let me think here. There were a couple others, but the really big important one is my birthday is September 11th.
Oh, yeah.
The only conspiracy I know of that surrounding September 11th is that my parents conspired on, I would guess, New Year's Eve to have me in the 9th month of the year. So, not the only conspiracy out there. But what do you think started all of the September 11th type conspiracies? I mean, they just don't seem to make. I don't know. I've got my own ideas, but I want to hear your ideas.
My ideas. The first ones I started hearing were coming out of that Engineers and Architects for 9/11 Truth.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about how the buildings couldn't come down. They should have been, they were designed to these various standards. Fires have never brought buildings down. What's some of the other stuff they've said? And that was kind of the earliest. Well, see, I was working in Morris. I was out at Lyondell when that happened, and I mean, I was watching it play out on the.
Note is Lyondell used to be known as Northern Petrochemical, and that's my dad worked there all his life. So. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I was there when it was Equistar. I mean, that place changed. What was it? Quantum, then it was Equistar. Now it's Lyondell. It changes names.
Might as well just put a chalkboard up out on the road and then erase and put a new name up every week.
Yeah. I mean, I've even seen some Enron stuff. I mean, at some point, Enron had something to do with it.
Anyway, sidetrack.
Yeah. But, I mean, while I was working there, and one of the engineers come in and said that a plane just hit the World Trade Center. Mm-hmm. So everyone in the room turned on CNN on their web, started, on their computers and started watching this. I mean, I was actually going to be there a half day because Comcast was coming out to get me Wi-Fi. I was going to get high-speed internet that day. Mm-hmm. So I had to go home in the afternoon. But we're watching this play out, and saw the first plane hit, and something, air traffic controller mess up, sent the plane in the wrong direction or whatever the deal was. But then when the second one hit, this is going to be serious. Then we hear about the Pentagon, and then Shanksville. And it's like I'm watching this play out. I'm going, and actually I wonder how the conspiracy guys are going to deal with this. They're going to come up with something. And sure enough, and it wasn't really right away. About 6 months later, I started hearing about this guy Richard Gage, who started the Engineers and Architects for 9/11 Truth, and going on about the structural. The structure should have held up. The fire shouldn't have burnt so long. All this kind of stuff, and I'm going, okay, this must be the angle they're going to take, that that something on the airplanes or something, whatever, they're going to go some route. And I started, now that I had high speed internet, I could start searching out all sorts of places. I started seeing stuff come up like. You're talking about the free fall, that there might have been explosives. That the building was prepped for explosives. All sorts of little, this stuff, and then I come across a list. And there's about 200 questions on this list, and there was stuff like, there was the normal stuff. About the alleged hijackers. There's supposedly a report where they were still alive, living in the Middle East. There was all these guys, couldn't have flown the planes or whatever. They weren't good enough pilots. And I started thinking, like a lot of these questions just seem so ridiculous, because I don't think you need to be a very good pilot to crash a plane, to be honest. I think that's a sign of being a pretty terrible pilot. Because, and then there was the stuff about, I seen a bunch of stuff about Henry Kissinger. What does Henry Kissinger have anything to do with this stuff? So I knew there was a lot of, So there's a lot of these weird, everyone's throwing ideas out, and I think that the idea was to throw all these ideas out and hopefully something will stick. And fortunately for, there was the Popular Mechanics debunking of pretty much everything serious with the conspiracy. Airplanes can't, the damage that was done was quite possible. I work in engineering, and I know that when you have that serious of a structural damage to a structure, you got fire. The fuel may only burn at 700 or whatever so many degrees. That's not saying that the particle board in the offices, or the file cabinets, the paper, all this stuff, all the chemicals that may be involved with building it, could have raised the temperature higher. Plus, if a chimney effect started, which that's what it kind of looked like, you can get into the 2,000, 3,000 degree range, and you could start melting steel. I mean, there was melted steel in the center of the, at the end, but again, that was all due to it was like this, the subways were, the fires were drawing air underneath, and it was like almost like a blast furnace. So yeah, you're gonna find molten steel.
Mm-hmm.
It's real easy to test the chimney effect. Start with a chimney starter, put some paper in the bottom, burn the paper, then feel what comes out at the top. It's a lot hotter than fire on the bottom is.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to say, Mike, I've heard a lot of that argument before about the temperature of the temperature that steel the temperature that airplane fuel burns at compared to the temperature that steel melts at. But and there's another thing to remember is that the besides the factors that you mentioned, which are all accurate, another thing is that the steel would not have to melt for the building collapse. It would only have to be sufficiently weakened. And even at the figures that some of the conspiracy theorists give, the temperature that they cite would have weakened the steel by 60%. Now, while I'm not a physics expert, I work at the bottom of a tall office building here in Indianapolis, and if I was just informed that the steel had been weakened by 60%, I'd get out immediately.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So 1%. I mean, I'd be considering. I think there's like a 30% safety factor, or I forget what the safety, because there's all these safety factors built in. But yeah, when you start heating steel, the steel's going to expand, contract. It's going to go in different directions. When I talked about it on the Irreverent Skeptics, where if I'm not a structural engineer, but I do know that they do things like, there's some where the steel is rigidly attached, others where it's allowed to move. The Sears Tower, or whatever, the Willis Tower, whatever it's called now.
Willis Tower, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I call it the Sears Tower. It does every Chicagoan.
Okay.
Okay. That's why I said Sears first. So, it's designed to bend. This building will sway in the wind, and there's parts you got to want to hold together tight, others you don't, or you shear the bolts off, and once those bolts start coming apart, next thing you know, you've got compromised structural integrity.
I work at the top of buildings like that, including the Willis Tower, and people don't realize how heavy that stuff is. A full power UHF television transmitter is huge and really, really heavy. You think the weight of the building is something, all the stuff in it, it all adds up. That building needs every bit of its mechanical strength that it was designed to have. They take it so seriously that if you want to put something in these buildings, you have to coordinate with the building engineer and determine where on the floor it goes to keep the floor balanced.
Yeah, I worked on a project where we're putting an MRI in a high-rise in Chicago. We had to figure out how to get through the walls, and they had to do it without removing any type of members. It had to be taken in just the crane had to be a certain way and stuff like that. I don't think it ever happened, to be honest, because it was just where they wanted to put it was, I don't think they could get a crane to do it. So,
there's tens of thousands of gallons of water in these buildings just for the water chillers in the cooling system. Crash an airplane into it and see what happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt that the World Trade Center actually had a totally different kind of construction versus other buildings, whereas most buildings, if an airplane hit the Sears Tower, I don't think that would collapse because of its design. It's designed of 9 tubes, and there's like straight up beams everywhere, whereas World Trade Center, there was one central column, and then all of the weight was taken actually on the facade. The facade was load-bearing.
Right.
And there's another thing I want to mention about the whole controlled demolition theory. That comes from people who don't understand what's involved in a controlled demolition. I look back, 13 years ago here in Indianapolis, where we tore down, or we demolished Market Square Arena, which was the home of Indianapolis, the home of the Indiana Pacers, and also where Elvis Presley performed his last concert. And basically for months, I mean literally months, there was a team of dozens of people who worked on that. They drilled thousands of holes in the wall, put some sort of explosive in each hole, and it was a very detailed, concise, controlled process. And then finally, that they destroyed it, you know, after months. And so the thing is, people need to understand that destroying a controlled demolition of the World Trade Center isn't like somebody just dropping, you know, walking in with a bomb, then walking across the street, pressing a button, and then the whole thing blowing up. And you know, it would take months to prepare it, and it could not be done without people noticing that something was going on, especially with all the people that go in and out of there every day. I mean, Market Square Arena, of course, they didn't have to keep it secret, but the point is the building had been closed for a couple of years by then. And so basically, you would have to believe that not only people did all this without being noticed for months, but also that everyone kept quiet about it, that not one person had a conscience and made an anonymous phone call. You know, and you look at even the most vile governments. I mean, we have a very, you know, bad government, yes, but I mean, if you look at even the worst governments in history, one thing history has shown us is that there were good people involved in those governments. I mean, there were Nazis, for example, who let Jews and other persecuted peoples, you know, get away. There were, you know, border guards in some of these communist countries in Eastern Europe that would fire but intentionally miss at the people who were escaping, you know, all kinds of things like that. One of my cousins...
to kill Hitler came from the inside sometimes.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and, you know, some of the, like, here's another example. I mean, like, my first cousin once removed married a Romanian guy, and the way he got out of Romania was by bribing the border guard, you know, to escape from communist Romania into Lebanon. And then from there he immigrated to America. So, you know, to believe that the hundreds, if not thousands of people that would have to be in on this plot, you know, were all such vile people that not one leaked any information. I mean, if you believe that, then, you know, you have a very flawed understanding of human nature.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I mean, the thing is, I mean, I think our government, you know, there's a lot of evil forces in our government, but I just don't think our government is, you know, swift enough to pull off that kind of, you know.
Well, that's just it. They're so inept at so many things that they try to do and so horribly inefficient. Why are they not horribly inefficient at secrecy also?
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, when I was a senior in high school, one of my classmates and his cousin who went to another high school there in Jefferson County in southern Indiana, they decided they were going to kill somebody just to see what it was like to kill somebody. So they killed this guy who was in his 60s, didn't have any immediate family, and they got caught not because they left a trail of crumbs, but because they boasted about it to their friends, you know. And so, you know, to think that not one person would have ever leaked anything out of the at least hundreds, if not thousands, that you'd have to have involved with this, you know. And of course, the harm in it is twofold. Number one is that it makes the libertarian movement look bad. Since, I mean, I know we have people in this, you know, who aren't we have like liberals involved in this movement too, but it's largely associated with libertarians. And then number two, it's a smokescreen that distracts from the real problem behind 9/11, which is decades of interventionism that have made us enemies all over the world.
You know, I think you hit on a good issue there. Lec. For example, with the whole chemtrail nonsense. I mean, people are, oh, look at the airplanes spraying crap in the sky and blah, 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 and like they're all worried about this when they're not looking, you know, toward the city of Chicago and seeing that big old huge, you know, honking smog sitting over the city. You know, that's a much. Let's say that the chemtrail thing is real. That's, you know, the smog sitting over the city of Chicago is much more dangerous than any chemtrail thing could ever do. Of course, then they try to, you know, do it up with nonsense like, you know, like nanobots and all this crap. You know, they just grab a word and then they run with it. But yeah, I mean, it's as I like to say, there's more evil in 30 minutes of C-SPAN than there is in the entirety of the conspiracy movement. I mean, right? Evil's on display right in front of you. There's no need for conspiracies. The shit's going on right there.
Yeah, and there's another thing that I wanted to point out, and this shows, I always say that the easiest arguments are those that you can win just by using your opponent's own words or own actions. As I remember last year, this year, last football season, they had the Super Bowl up in New Jersey, and the government, now boasted that it was the best security they'd ever had, it was, they did all kinds of things to avoid against a terrorist attack, and then at the Super Bowl press conference, this conspiracy wacko, he grabs the mic, and he has no credentials, by the way, no media credentials, so it's not like it was a dissident media of the press. I mean, he was just some conspiracy wacko who walked in, grabbed the microphone, and talked about 9/11. They need to investigate 9/11, that it was an inside job. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. This government, supposedly the best security ever, can't even keep this wacko out of a press conference from getting the mic. And yet you think that this guy also believes that the government that can't even keep him out of the press conference can manage to destroy the World Trade Center in secret, and not to mention, the plane in Pennsylvania, the plane that hit the Pentagon.
We have.
I mean, it's hilarious in a sick way.
We have something in the Q&A here. One of our viewers. Oops, dang it. Hold on. Let me go back here.
Yeah, not to mention video evidence of debris from the top of those buildings falling faster than the building, which came down at free fall speed. Oops.
Oh, that was ejected, is what they say. But one of our viewers popped in the Q&A. Theorists say the Pentagon must have been hit with a missile because of the shape of the hole in the building. Actually, because this isn't Looney Tunes, planes don't make perfect outlines in reinforced walls. The heavy parts penetrated the wall, while the fuselage crumpled up and probably disintegrated, which is, yeah, I mean, and then, of course, you show these people, pictures from the Pentagon showing all of the debris from the airplane, and then, that was planted. You can't win.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. I mean, I've seen the pictures. I mean, there's shredded metal all over the place. I think part of the engine was still up. One of the engines was still outside the building. I mean, there was photos. I mean, I saw them, and that's all figment of our imagination. I mean, I love the latest one that the buildings actually, the planes that hit the building were holograms. I'm like, come on, I know, you're grasping at straws at this point, trying to create keep the thing alive,
Because it's religion. It's because it's religion, and as soon as you interfere with their religion, whatever they hold the most dear, this is all about who I am. As soon as you interfere with that, defense mechanism switches on, and they have to defend it somehow.
Well,
yeah, and I mean, I'm sorry, Jim.
Yeah, well, we are all paid shills. I want to say one thing. There's a couple of really awesome parody sites on groups on Facebook. There's the one is Engineers and Architects for 415 Truth. That's the sinking of the Titanic and how the Illuminati was behind that. That site's hilarious. It's all satire, tongue in cheek. It's awesome. And then 7-Eleven is Architects and Engineers for 7-Eleven Truth.
Well, they're starting to parody each other. There's another one. It's not very popular. It's still growing. A parody of the 415 one because it's tax day.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And about income taxes and what a conspiracy that is, which is kind of true. So it makes it even more funny.
So, Mike, what got you interested in looking at conspiracies in the first place?
Well, I like to pin it to I'm a history nut. I mean, anything history, but I was really big on World War II, Civil War, and I read At Dawn We Slept, the book, Gordon Pranch. It's the whole Pearl Harbor story, and in the final chapters, I think it's after there's this chapter on Revisionists Revisited. And this is where he here's all the conspiracies about the Pearl Harbor. There's well, there's a belief that Roosevelt knew and let it happen. And of course, there's been in there was all these writers who wrote books and stuff like that on all this, and I started looking into them. I'm like, well, where did you get, where did these guys get some of this stuff? And that's when I started looking at Pearl Harbor, and like, because I mean, on the face, it's like, how could the Japanese pull this off, and how could they get a fleet across the Pacific undetected and hit Pearl Harbor? And then and then asking questions like, well, then how would, why, how could, if they, when I started finding out things like, well, even though we were breaking codes, we weren't breaking the right codes. We were only breaking diplomatic codes. We were barely into the Japanese Navy, which had the tougher encryptions. So there was actually no way anyone could have known. But then, I keep coming across like these. There was Seaman Z, and the Lurline, the Lurline, a passenger ship that claimed to be picking up Japanese Navy signals from the North Pacific. And when I started looking at it, a lot of stuff just didn't add up. Radio direction at the time on a ship, even, I pulled up a map. I got a great circle map. I tried to plot out where the ship might have been, and it's like, well, either they were actually picking up the fleet and they were using local radio, or they were picking up a southern attack that was going to go in along with the Pearl Harbor and Guam, Wake. There was also going to be an attack on Singapore, and that fleet everyone knew about, and they were talking away. It could very well have been that what they were hearing was that southern attack. So trying to make the connection, there was like this, I could actually prove that it could have been, it might have been, but it more than likely was the southern attack. So I started, and I kept collecting all these little bits and pieces, and I started realizing, and then when I started looking at Roosevelt, either you liked the guy or you hated the guy. I mean, it's politics, it was politics as it was, and as it is today almost. I mean, I think actually, I would almost say Roosevelt is probably the grandfather of the politics we have today. I mean, because he worked it so well. I mean, he was, he was really good at manipulating other people. But that was, you got to give the guy credit. He was able to do that. But then again, a lot of people didn't like that, and a lot of people didn't like Roosevelt, and so it was
I think up on something with conspiracies is that if an event occurs during X president and you are against that president, then you're going to automatically believe any conspiracy because Lord knows your guy is a good guy. Yeah,
confirmation bias. I mean, you're gonna
believe the whole that Roosevelt had pre-warning about the Pearl Harbor attack, because I'm no fan of Roosevelt.
Yeah, I think that's one reason I try to. Jim, you're right about that tendency, and I try to avoid it. That's one reason why I've never gotten involved, for example, in the birther theories. Even if I were convinced that they were true, I wouldn't get involved in it because I think they're a smokescreen. I'm much more interested in teaching people about how destructive Obama's policies are than where he might have been born. I mean, if he were unquestionably born in America, his policies wouldn't be any more acceptable.
Exactly.
What do these? If let's say for a moment that these conspiracies are real, what are you going to do about it? The deck's already stacked against you. If these conspiracies are real, you should be dead. I think the fact that Alex Jones is still alive and David Icke is still alive and all these conspiracies...
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
Personal opinion here, I think the most dangerous conspiracy theorists out there are going to be the ones that promote the chemtrails thing. because most of the conspiracy theories, save the vaccination cause autism's crap, you know, those are all single incidents in the past. Sandy Hook, 9/11, JFK, you know, all those. But the chemtrail thing, as more and more airplanes go in the sky, you're going to see more and more of the contrails. And the conspiracy theorists are going to wake up one day and say, we're not having any effect because there's more and more out there. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these chemtrail people do terrorist attacks on airplanes, thinking that they're destroying, you know, things full of chemicals. There's already been accounts of chemtrail people with laser pointers going near airports, and in Australia, there was one chemtrail activist that actually has physically threatened pilots with death. I don't remember the whole story, but I do recall reading this. And don't take anything I say. I mean, look it up for yourself. I mean, I keep telling people that, but I think those people are probably going to be the most insane, because those things aren't going away, and there's no way you're going to make those contrails go away.
Yeah, well, you know, and stuff like you know, the immunizations. Look, my kids have had all their shots, and they're fine. Other than they won't close the door or flush the toilet or wash their hands, you know, they're all good. So I can't believe your conspiracy, because it doesn't apply to me and so many other people I know. And then, you know, this state, and I know some others probably do it as well, this state makes a big deal. If you go to the Department of Health Services website and read, it's all over there about how safe the vaccines are, and they go into thimerosal, not in the detail that the conspiracy goofballs do, but they put it up there. You know, so in the school, you have to get your kids vaccinated, and trust us, it's safe. All that's there. But I can look up in the sky and see these lines, and it affects everybody. You tell me, well, the military jets are doing this, and you look up, oh yeah, there they are. It's in my neighborhood. It's everywhere for everybody, and so that's why I think that has a little more wheels.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing though about the vaccine thing, all the information is out there, but it's mostly on government websites, and we know that the government lies about everything. You know, the difference between rational people and the conspiracy mindset is that the rational people see government as inept, whereas the conspiracy mindset think it's evil through and through. I don't think it's evil. I think the government has, at the very least, the best intentions. But the best intentions don't necessarily make for good policy. Ergo, you know, since there's so many hens in the pot, we end up with a stew that nobody wants.
Yeah, and Jim, I mean, I think there are bad people in government. I mean, I think the bigger the government and the bigger and more intrusive the government gets, the more it becomes appealing to bad people. But I think the bulk of the people are just inept. I mean, when I go to the Department of Motor Vehicles, you know, or some other office that I have to go to, I very rarely see anyone there and who I think, oh God, this person is the personification of evil. You know, what I'm really am left thinking most of the time is that a person has his or her head up his or her butt and is completely clueless.
But you know, we're all paid shills, despite the fact that I've never gotten a check. And if I'm a paid shill, I'm owed quite a bit of money, and I can use it right.
Well, I think I'm related to one of the families of the Illuminati. I found this 13th family. I haven't gotten any Illuminati money, and I work for big petroleum. I'm not getting big checks from them people. So,
no, you're of German descent? Is that what I'm getting from your last name? Is that
Bohler? Bohler's actually French.
Oh, is
really?
It? Oh, okay.
No, looks German to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like a quarter German on my mother's side. Yeah, Bohlers came from. Well, actually, it's from Alsace. That's right. You know, right on the France-German border. Yeah, that's like half. You know, they were German-speaking French.
Oh,
that's when they came across.
Okay, but I mean, yeah, I mean the whole thing is insane, and I think, and I think Mike might back me up on this. I think you all back me up on this, but I think one of the reasons why these things proliferate is because we are so into this, 24-hour news cycle where got to get the story out first, that they sacrifice accuracy. one thing they always bring up about 9/11 is the reporter for the BBC saying that, Tower 7 collapsed when it hadn't collapsed yet. And, everybody was out there trying to be the first with the story, and they were reporting everything, whether it was true or not. They were reporting that the Sears Tower got hit. They were reporting that this thing around the country got hit. I mean, they were reporting everything, whether it was without vetting the stuff, because they wanted to be first. And I think a lot of these conspiracy theorists, they've already got their mind made up, so they look at that stuff and they go, see, I mean, she knew ahead of time that Tower 7 was going to fall. Well, you could have made a mistake. I wouldn't have known the numbers of the towers if I was out there. Yeah, I've been to New York. And, I know the World Trade Center. I didn't realize it was just the two towers.
Nor did I.
Didn't realize it was a whole bunch of different buildings, so I wouldn't have known what numbers those were. Funny thing, we went to New York City like a couple of years before that. We were trying to decide whether to go up the Sears or go up the Empire State Building or the World Trade Center, and we said, well, let's go up the Empire State Building. We can always get the World Trade Center next time we come to town. Famous last words, I guess, but.
Look, it's just entertainment. Some people are really into these singing contest shows. Some people can't miss their soap operas. Some people just they just love the news. They have to watch the filthiest, the dirtiest laundry. They love it. Some people, it's got to be the government's out to get me, and spy helicopters are following me personally around because I know the truth. And then the media, because they're in the entertainment business also, they're not going to do anything about that. Remember the Asiana flight pilots' names when they released that? Come on, nobody bothered to check. Nobody in the newsroom heard this. Nobody read. Who was making the stuff for the prompter? And nobody went, no, that's not right. That's bogus. That's not real. That's a joke. Nobody noticed.
Mm-hmm. I just saw. No. Okay. One thing we're going to have to do on this show eventually, because of some things coming up, is watch the language, but I've got to say this here. The news is so interested in getting the top story. I saw this series of videos on YouTube where there was a guy at like an accident or whatever, and whatever, and they say, well, here's a witness, to the story, and the guy would start talking about it, and then he said, and then I fucked her right in the pussy. And I'm like thinking, you didn't check this guy out. He just happened to be there, and you took his word that he saw the thing happen, and you're letting this guy on. I mean, you don't know any of this, Right.
Oh, no, I love it. I love it. You remember the names from the Asiana flight that went missing? Remember when they put the thing up on the screen? And supposedly the names came straight from the government. And how did nobody check?
They were, they were very racist. I can't remember the exact names.
Yeah. Captain Something Wong,
That's
right?
It, yeah.
Yeah, We Too Low, Holy Fook. Come on, man. How do you read this? How do you read this in front of a green screen and it's on the prompter? How do you do that and not realize you're being had?
Exactly.
Ron Burgundy, come on.
I know.
You put it up on the prompter, he reads it.
One of the best lines in Anchorman 2 is, they're trying to build a new, news thing, and he's, telling his guy, it's like, why do we have to tell people what they need to hear? Why don't we just tell them what they want to hear?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the news cycle feeding it, and then you get people, and then on top of it, you get people like Dr. Oz on TV and Dr. Phil, pushing their pseudoscience and stuff. And by the way, did you see how Dr. Oz got grilled and totally lambasted in front of the Senate last week? Oh my gosh, it did my little heart wonders. My heart went pitter pat. So yeah, but and then he's promoting, and he even admitted that he has no scientific proof that anything he does on his show works. And he got out of this Senate hearing or whatever. But you know what? That's not going to deter the faithful. They've done all this stuff with that vaccines cause autism. It's been soundly debunked. I mean, it's that Andrew Wakefield guy was a shyster, who was just putting this question mark on this one vaccine to promote his own. He lost his license, but he lost his license though because he was telling the truth and the government wanted to silence it up. And I'm like, You know, given me and my family, I take extreme offense to the vaccines cause autism or this, that, or the other thing, because me and two of my kids have some forms of autism.
Yeah, my son and I too.
Yeah, and I find that really, really, really offensive. And people go out of their way. Well, we don't. And people go out of their way to do this. And then you got this people that go to this Joseph Mercola guy. And the thing I love most is going on to the pseudoscience and vaccine thing. These people talk about the multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical industry, and they're making all these profits. And have you seen the house that Joseph Mercola owns in the northern suburbs of Chicago? He sells all of this crap on his website. He's got a multi-million-dollar freaking house. How big of a house does Alex Jones have? How big of a house does Dr. Oz have? I mean, how much money are these people making? Alex Jones pulls down like $2 million a year. I mean, come on, it's big money. Another thing I always say, I don't trust anything big. Big business, big government, big labor, big religion, big conspiracy. And I only put them in there because they're making billions of dollars. The whole organic and homeopathic thing is making billions. And by the way, if you really want to see a demonstration of what homeopathic is, go to YouTube, and I'll try to put this in the show notes, and search James Randi. I think it's James Randi homeopath. He takes a whole bottle of homeopathic sleeping pills at the beginning of the talk, and nothing happens. And let's put it, if you want another demonstration of how homeopathic doesn't work, go to any drugstore. Okay, go to the aisle where they have asthma inhalers, and you'll see like stuff like Primatene and whatever. You have to, at least in Illinois, you have to take a card back to the pharmacist. The only box of asthma inhalers you will see on the counter in a store, in a drugstore, and it's not behind the pharmacist's desk, are the homeopathic ones. Now, why is that?
Exactly. Medicinal value. None.
Exactly. It's somebody joked that they should make a homeopathic treatment for Morgellons disease. Man, if I had no sense of ethics at all, I would jump on that.
That's awesome.
I pitched back in the Y2K days. I had a buddy who did electronic repair, and I go, it'd be a great scam. Do a thing where you can bring your electronics in and have it Y2K tested. and just charge them $20 a pop. You can pick someone out if you want to say, well, yeah, there's a problem with the chip. I have to replace it. That'll be $100. You could play that scam, but bring your stuff in. It's we'll certify it Y2K compliant, and everything will be happy. And all it'll be just a 10-cent sticker and a couple minutes time.
The one thing I'm glad about the whole year 2000 thing, the Y2K thing, is that none of the automatic flush toilets had a date timer in them, so that they thought we were suddenly in 1900 and we were all houses. So I'm glad for that.
Yeah, and to me, looking back, I mean, that was another big embarrassment. And I remember, because I'm 43 now. I just turned 29 when the millennium turned over, and I became aware of the problem about 2 years before. And I remember the one thing that did make it a little bit scary is that it was a problem that was completely unprecedented. There wasn't anything in history we could look back on to get an idea how this might turn out, but there was no reason whatsoever to believe that these companies wouldn't be able to get their systems converted. And in fact, a friend of mine who works, I think, for an accounting company said he figured out that the whole thing was a scam when, I think, like 15 months before the millennium turned over, the guy came up to his company and he was out the door in 15 minutes, having already made that's how long it took him to make this computer system Y2K compliant and move on.
By the way, we got a computer problem coming up in about 24 years, the year 2038 bug.
What's that?
It's with the C programming language, or the C++ programming language, and it's about how they have a problem with the maximum value of time before it rolls over to a negative and invalid value. So
okay.
So it was amazing. The Y2K thing, people were selling their water purifiers and selling their generators. Now, generator is not a bad thing to have, especially if you're in an area with questionable electricity in the first place. And some of that stuff that they were hawking was not bad to have. It's just that because of Y2K, they raised the price 300-400%. Trying to make a buck. And
my favorite is when you get guys like Jim Baker and some of those types. They're on the TV talking about the last days, right? The end of the world is coming, so get your survival gear. Wait a minute, nobody gets to stay. Nobody gets to stay. We're all going to go.
and I'm glad you mentioned that, because one thing that I've thought for several years now is that the thing is, when people talk about religious cults, they're thinking about some of these fringe churches here, and then some of these wackos on TV. But really, when you think about it, there are other movements out there that aren't directly affiliated with religion, but have the same kind of zeal, among mindless followers. And I think the conspiracy theory movement is one of them.
And the conspiracy theories, you like to put them under religious people, but there are people out there that are atheists and are usually pretty sane on a lot of things that have their own conspiracy theories that they go out and promote. I mean, I think we all have some sort of a conspiracy theory in the back of our head that we think could be true, but unlike the conspiracy theorists, or actually, I heard a better term for these people, conspiracy hypothesizers. Wow. We don't go out and making a big deal out of this stuff. Like, I've got two conspiracy theories that I hold to. One, 2010, when the whole Deepwater Horizon thing happened, the price of gasoline did not go up at all. So either A, the spill was not as bad as people were saying, or B, there's more oil out there than what we're being led to believe. I know it's a conspiracy, and I have no proof of it one way or the other. It's just something in the back of my head, but I don't go on and on and on about it. It's not the reason I live. And the other one is that, and this one could be true. I mean, there are some indications that this sort of thing has been done in the past. Is that the government is encouraging the conspiracy theory movement to keep them away from the real problems, the stuff you see on C-SPAN. I was reading an article one time about the JFK conspiracy theories, and there have been letters uncovered which basically show that the Soviet Union was behind starting these theories.
I'm not surprised. I mean, and they are a distraction, and of course there are issues that are real issues, but nevertheless are used, I think, as distractions, like the whole same-sex marriage thing. As we had a judge overturn Indiana's ban on same-sex marriage this week, and you have people up in arms about it, and I tell people, I tell people on both sides of the debate, I just say, if your honest religious conviction is that marriage is a sacred covenant created by God for one man and one woman, you should want the government to have nothing to do with defining or sanctioning it. If you're a liberal, if you believe in same-sex marriage, fine, but don't get so wrapped up in it that you overlook the fact that we have a state of perpetual war, we have massive civil liberties violations, we have a $17 trillion debt that's a serious threat to our economy, our stability. So don't get so, don't put all your eggs in the same-sex marriage basket, because we have much bigger fish to fry. And the problem with, wasting debate time on, comparatively minor issues like that is that they take our focus away from where it should be.
It's weapons of mass distraction.
Yes, that's very, very good point.
The whole thing. That's not a big issue because, according to Alex Jones, people are only turned gay by drinking out of juice boxes. So,
well, then my kids are 9 and 10, and their fate is already sealed. Then,
yeah, I think all of our fates are sealed.
The only conspiracy I'm worried about right now is the one where you guys are going to make me late. I got to get out of here.
Okay. Hey, thanks for joining us, Eric.
All right, see ya.
Thanks. Nice to meet you, Mike. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah, definitely.
So, so Mike, having said this about how I have these two conspiracies that I believe could possibly be true, but at least I acknowledge I have no evidence one way or the other. Is there anything that you entertain?
Well, actually, I try to find conspiracies that were conspiracy theories that turned out to be fact.
Mm-hmm.
I like to use the 1919 Black Sox scandal as being as an example.
Real quickly, what show was that you did that on? I'm trying to remember the name of it.
I think it was 1919 Black Sox scandal, but I also did it also with Carl Maimer.
Doing that, I'm trying to remember what the name of that show was. I can't.
Carl Maimer's The Conspiracy Skeptic.
Okay, that's it. Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah, because what was interesting about it was that there was the Hugh Featherston, and he did the investigation. He was looking into it, and everyone thought he was a conspiracy. He was a conspiracy theorist. Mm-hmm. How could the White Sox throw the World Series? But he had statistics. Actually, Featherston is famous, and he's in the Hall of Fame as being for being introducing baseball statistics. The stuff, when you watch a game, all those statistics could be attributed to him. And when he pulled enough information together, they were able to create a case. And granted, Chicago, I mean, once they got into courts and money, plus I'm sure some money by both sides got thrown around, got acquitted. I'm kind of getting some feedback here, so. Yeah, when they got acquitted, it's all of a sudden it became, even though they were acquitted, the evidence was clearly that they did take the money, and they they took the money and they threw the game.
Yeah.
And then the next one would be the Snowden. I remember a guy coming up with it sounded also, it looked so much like conspiracy theory, where they were, I believe the main trunks that come into the United States has a splitter box for all the phone lines, and it was in a secret locked room. But the stuff this was back before the internet, so I was seeing stuff like, really crude, the old ASCII graphics type stuff, and nothing really tangible. So I thought, I sat in the back of my mind, it's like, and kind of thinking, okay, the United States is spy. I mean, they spy. We spy on all our friends, our enemies, whoever.
That's conspiracy itself.
Yeah, and so I would think that somewhere in the phone system there is a master. It could be master, it could be just individual trunks, whatever it is, to tap phone lines. And if they needed to tap, if they need to tap my phone line, they flip a switch. So I'm kind of I kind of expect that. I would hope that, of course, I would hope that there would be the proper procedures, court order, warrants, all that kind of stuff. But then with the, so it was like, it wasn't so bad, but I didn't really believe it until Snowden made his revelations. I go, okay, I can believe this now, because we got somebody, a whistleblower. Mm-hmm. So, I kind of go with that.
Yeah, and of course the thing is, obviously, if this 9/11 conspiracy stuff actually were true, you'd think we'd have a whistleblower there too.
Well,
exactly.
Conspiracy theorists are going on and saying what's in Snowden's secret, secret files, and they're saying that he confirmed chemtrails and the 9/11 inside job and all these other conspiracies when no such thing has ever really been revealed.
Right.
Yeah, that's something that really pisses me off about conspiracy theorists, is they will go and I don't know if this is conspiracy theorists or people that are just having fun with them, but they will go and fake evidence and pictures and stuff to make it seem like there's more going on there than meets the eye. I recall a picture from September 11th where it shows some firemen like in a pit, and it looks like there's molten steel down there, but in reality it was a picture of these firemen and they had lights shining into it, but a person took Photoshop and enhanced it to make it look like molten steel. There was a great video on YouTube about the September 11th, and the video showed like explosions coming from the window. I think it was of Building 7, and then the airplane. No. Yeah, it was Building 7. There was no airplane, and then they showed it collapsing. And conspiracy theorists, for the most part, bought this hook, line, and sinker, including a conspiracy theorist who had a series of videos on YouTube about how to use Adobe After Effects.
Really?
And the guy put a couple of things in the video to make it look like there was, or to prove the video was fake. Like, he put a barely visible UFO in the background flying across, and then in backwards and in a shade of gray that was hard to detect with the naked eye, he had the words, "You conspiracy theorists will buy anything," or something like that.
Oh, okay.
That video up, because that was classic. And like I said, this one conspiracy theorist who does these videos on Adobe After Effects bought it, hook, line, and sinker.
Oh, okay. And there's one thing I also want to mention is that in regard to Y2K, that reminds me about the people who are conspiracy theorists about things yet to happen. I remember hearing so many of the 9/11, Y2K conspiracy theorists, and I remember in the days after the year 2000, started, I never heard one of them come forward and say, I jumped the gun, I was irresponsible, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, I'll be careful about making such grim predictions in the future. Instead, everyone that I know of just immediately jumped on some other conspiracy.
No, you know what I noticed on the Y2K thing with the people promoting that conspiracy is that while they didn't admit that they were wrong, they got credit for it not happening.
Oh, okay. So that's their spin. Okay.
Yeah, because of our warnings, it didn't happen.
Yeah. And, well, what's ironic is that everyone I heard basically said we were, in the last few days, that we were too far gone. There was no hope.
Yeah, and it's, it's its own mindset. It's its own religion. And,
it is, yeah.
And,
just like we're seeing over in Brazil. I mean, soccer, has the effect of being a religion for a lot of people. I mean, you go over to Europe. In most countries in Europe, the church attendance rate is under 20% now. In quite a few of them, it's under 10%. But soccer brings out a zeal that nothing else does. I mean, to the point that people get into fights over it. I mean, for example, I know we had that incident at Dodger Stadium a year or two ago, but for the most part, I mean, like here in Indianapolis, our biggest rival for the Colts is the New England Patriots. If you walk through a store in Indianapolis with a Patriots shirt on, probably the worst thing that'll happen to you is you'll get teased. You're not likely to be assaulted, let alone killed.
Well, here in Chicago, we have had many, many cases of Cubs fans getting assaulted at the Cell, and we've had many cases of Sox fans getting assaulted at Wrigley Field. I mean, it's
really,
wow. Really, it's not something that happens all the time, and most of it is good-natured ribbing. But people like me who suffer from depression, a lot of times take that the wrong way, being the Cubs fan that I am. But But yeah, no, it can get nasty, especially here in Chicago. And while I'm a diehard Cubs fan, it puzzles me because neither team are in the same league. I mean, I can understand when they're playing against each other, but they're not even in the same league.
And of course, before they had interleague play, they didn't play at all.
Yeah, the Cubs play real baseball, and the White Sox use the designated hitter cheating rule. So
yeah, I hate the DH rule. I think it really cheapens the game.
Yeah, I really hate that. Tangent here, but I really dislike the interleague play because it takes some of the fun out of, in my opinion, it takes some of the fun out of the All-Star game and the World Series because the two teams in the World Series have probably already met sometime during the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, I have mixed feelings about it, but I look at it as what it was. It happened right after the strike that canceled the World Series, and baseball was just pulling out a bunch of gimmicks to win the fans back.
Yeah. So what do you think, Mike, about baseball?
Oh, what, I am not that big of a sports fan, to be honest.
Honestly, I'm not either.
Yeah. I mean, I think the most I've probably seen a lot of Sox, a few Cub games, but that's about it.
Yeah, I've been to a few Cubs games, and I remember watching the Cubs on TV with my grandpa, back in the day, and that's kind of how I got into that. And as we should do a drinking game on the show. And every time I say, as I like to say, you take a shot. But as I like to say, when it comes to sports, all I watch is I'll watch my Cubs play, and if the Three Stooges aren't on, I'll watch wrestling. The Three Stooges are better scripted.
Yeah, I've been. I am a sports guy. I grew up near Cincinnati, so I grew up watching the Reds. I started watching after they had won those two World Series in '75 and '76, but they still had Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, some of the greats. So
Rose belongs. I don't care what MLB says.
What's that?
I still think Pete Rose. I think this is a conspiracy. Pete Rose belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah. And he made his mistakes, but goodness, I mean, there are so many people who've scarred the game a lot worse than he ever did.
Michael Jordan is a notorious gambler. Granted, he didn't bet sports games, but he is in the the NBA equivalent of the Hall of Fame, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, he's widely regarded as the greatest player of all time, which I believe he is too. But
like Pete Rose, Michael Jordan put on this whole wholesome, family facade, but underneath he was cheating on his wife, he was drinking, he was he was gambling, and all of this. He was let's face it, a normal human being. Mm-hmm. But Pete Rose didn't have this facade yet. People pretty much knew with Pete, you knew what you were getting.
Yeah.
Fun fact: the role of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the movie Airplane was originally written for Pete Rose.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Yeah, and yeah, I like Kareem also, but it would have been cool to have Pete in there. And that's one of the funniest movies of all time, without a doubt.
Oh, without a doubt, definitely mine, but. Okay, we're coming down to the wire here. We got about 7 minutes left, so anything you want to bring up or pimp out or whatever, Mike?
Well, first, kind of going back to Y2K.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I think, or at least part of the reasons why I like doing my show is I had a friend who believed that the world was coming to an end. Mm-hmm. He had all his money in stocks and stuff like that. He went and converted it all into gold, and moved into Mexico to weather out Y2K.
Oh.
When it didn't happen, he comes back to the States. He putting the money back into stocks. He bought into the .coms.
Oh boy!
And basically lost everything. I mean, if he would have left it alone, he probably would have done much better. But it's like, when you ask what the harm is, well, this is someone who lost his life savings believing in something, make believe. So I think it's what's important for me doing my podcast, and everybody who does a skeptic podcast. I think it's a very I mean, it would be nice if more people would listen to us, you know.
Yeah, and you know, I think similarly, you know, I see a parallel there about conspiracy theorists. You know, there are people who might otherwise be attracted to the libertarian movement, but they just think because of guys like Alex Jones, they just dismiss us as a bunch of conspiracy wackos.
Right.
Well, but like I was saying, every party, every philosophy has their conspiracy wackos. It just seems that once one conspiracy is out, from one side of the party or one side of the spectrum or whatever, or the other, they all trickle down to the libertarian movement, which really hurts us. Now, Mike is a conservative. The Bitchspot conservative atheist podcast, which is very, very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that you're making good mileage out of my Pat Robertson.
Yeah,
I got
love it.
Another tape series that he had back in the day, which I never got, about the New World Order, and I am looking for that one to see what goodies are in that. I've never heard that one, but I'm sure there's some stuff in there, and a lot of it, all the whole end of times mania thing, and there's been many times when I've been told that my eyes have been deceived by Satan and stuff like that, and like I said before, the age shield crap and all that. But in reality, you need to take some time and just not believe everything you hear. And
I think just a little discernment goes a long way.
The biggest irony is that the conspiracy theorists are fond of calling people that disagree with them sheep or sheeple,
Mm-hmm.
and irony table for two,
Yeah. I try to be the optimist on this show too. So it's like I wanted to chime in when you were on about I would like to think that if you could get past the bullshit and look at what's really going on, I think there's definitely room for libertarianism in our government. It sounds like you guys are doing pretty good here in Illinois. You got those extra signatures.
Yeah, the final is somewhere around 43,900 and something signatures, which is
good. Yeah, because we're doing really well over here in just east of the border in Indiana, where we keep automatically qualifying. In the last two U.S. Senate races, our Senate candidates got 5.3 and 5.8% of the vote in three-way races. So just got to keep on, taking the momentum and running with it.
Yeah.
Real quick before we end here, I just saw this pop up on Facebook literally just now.
Okay,
I've been trying to read this real quick because we only got about 2 minutes. Political opponents accuse each other of lying all the time, but one Oklahoma congressional candidate took his accusation to a new level this week when he claimed his opponent was actually dead and being represented by a body double.
Whoa.
Timothy Ray Murray believes Representative Frank Lucas, R., Oklahoma, his opponent in the congressional Republican primary, was executed 3 years ago as being represented by a lookalike. Because he believes Lucas is really dead, Murray said he will challenge the results of Tuesday's Republican primary, in which Murray received 5.2% of the vote. Lucas won the primary with 82.8% of the vote.
Wow.
Quote from him. Here's the quote from this guy. It is widely known Representative Frank D. Lucas is no longer alive and has been displayed by a lookalike. Representative Lucas's lookalike was depicted as sentenced on a white stage in southern Ukraine on or about January 11, 2011. Murray said in a statement posted on his campaign website. The statement claimed Lucas and a few other members of Congress from Oklahoma and other states were shown on television being hanged by the World Court. The insanity never ends. The insanity never ends. Holy crap, I've got to share this. This is wow. But at any rate, that's about does it for us. So once again, from Morris, Illinois, this is Jim Goebel.
From Indianapolis, Lex Zorn.
I'll
And
say
thanks.
goodbye for Eric Ferguson from Lockport. And I'd like to thank our guest, Mike Bohler. Mike, quickly tell us where people can find you.
I can be found at my website, mikebohler.com. That's where you'll get my A Skeptic's Guide to Conspiracy. You can also find me at theirreverentskeptics.com and the Bitchspot Report. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, whatever. So I'm out there.
Okay. So, all right. So we'll all see you again next week, and we will go from there. So, bye-bye.
Okay, see ya.
Yeah,
Thanks.